Moving on to question number 3. It comes in from Nurse Emily. Thanks for your nursing services, Emily. She writes, I'm new to lifting and I so appreciate how you gear your podcast for all experience levels. Thank you. Would you please talk about deloading? I've been lifting since January and it is now June. She maybe wrote it in May. Is this something I need to be doing periodically?
No.
You don't need to do deloads.
No, I'm not going to be dogmatic, but...
or rather, who knows?
Who knows? But I was in the same position when I was a beginner. I had been training starting strength for like 6 months or something, and I started looking into 531 from Jim Wendler, and I read his book about it. And in that book, deloads are holy grail.
Yeah.
Everybody needs to do them periodically, like every 6 weeks or something. I don't remember exactly.
That's because they restart their steroid cycle then.
That's what I've come to realize afterwards. I've never had a less productive training. After successfully doing starting strength for 6 months plus, I went to 531 and I started doing deloads, and after like 5 months I had progressed almost nothing, because the training I did was, I mean, the hard working sets were hard during my work weeks, but in the gym, but they weren't enough to make me...
there are very few hard sets.
Very few hard sets, the very low volume, and then also every like 1.5 months I took a week off. I went to the gym, did like 50% of what I used to do. So it wasn't enough to make me progress by progressive overload. And you hear about these things, and for sure, there's a lot of hardworking people out there in gyms that absolutely needs deload weeks to give their body a chance to adapt and recover to the hard training they've already done. But those people are training really, really hard for long cycles, and then they do a deload.
Yeah, and even in those cases, we're not sure that is the optimal route. Maybe it would have been better to just train slightly less so that they don't need to do a deload.
Yeah, and that's my preferred recommendation. If you start to feel abnormally tired, uninspired in the gym, just take some workouts off. I'm not meaning you shouldn't go to the gym. I'm meaning that lower the weights a bit, take it a bit easier, see if you get your groove back. But that's more organic than having a planned. In 9 weeks, I'm going to take a week or 2 off because my planning.
Because I know I'm going to be tired in 9
exactly.
weeks. Exactly in 9 weeks. Yeah, no, I agree. And if you need rest, and if you don't need rest, then don't.
Yeah.
And I also think that for most people, especially when they're still fairly new to the gym, like Nurse Emily here, that they should be running on a weekly plan, meaning that every 7 days they are pretty much recovered from what they did the week before. And if they notice that they're kind of digging themselves down into a hole, well, then maybe throw in a couple extra rest days to get back up and use that. I think the periodization tactic where you have longer cycles than a week, that comes a bit later when you're more advanced and you can't gain on the weekly cycles anymore. That's when you can start experimenting with heavier weeks and lighter weeks. But I wouldn't go so far as to say that you need deload weeks. Like, for instance, our 6-week strength programs, I think we sometimes call it that you have something of a deload in week 6 and in week 1 if you do repeated cycles, but you're still training. I mean, you're not doing half the weights you usually do. You take off like 10% of the volume and weights in those weeks.
I would say that doing half the weight, maybe even half the volume, that's the standard definition of a deload out there. When I Google it and see what other sites write about deloads, it's always take off half of the weight, do half the sets, maybe even remove a training day here or there. And I just feel like this is highly individual and only you can tell. But if you're having a productive training cycle, if you feel like everything is going well, you're just shooting yourself in the foot.
Precisely.
If you add in a deload week, ride the wave. If everything feels good, absolutely don't stop.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And conversely, if you have a plan, and you get into the gym and you feel like, wow, I'm completely deflated today.
Yeah.
I can't lift anything and it kind of hurts and I'm really unmotivated. Well, get back out of there and come back in 2 days or something, or just the next day and get some extra rest.
Just don't be one of those person that every training day is like that.
No, then
that's easy
then something else is wrong.
Yeah.
Okay.